I had a question for you. I was listening to. Well, did you have someplace you wanted to go first?
No, let's have it here.
I was wondering if it's possible to be iconic and underrated at the same time.
Ladies and gentlemen, your Toronto Maple Leafs. No, see, they're not underrated. If anything, they'd be overrated, right? Like, iconic, yes, but constantly failing, also, yes. Like,
Yeah. I think the Habs are iconic. I think
Yeah.
the Leafs are just something short of that.
Oh, I don't know about that, but that's a whole other
Yeah, it
debate.
certainly is. And I'm going in a musical,
Yeah,
in a musical direction.
Right,
You
iconic
got a
and underrated.
Yeah, and it actually comes up in a
Arcade Fire.
conversation with Led Zeppelin.
You got Led Zeppelin is underrated, do you?
Well, and really, maybe it's just by me.
Yeah. I think they suck.
Yeah, listening to a conversation, it was actually a good friend of the show, Graham Creech,
That a boy.
was talking about Led Zeppelin, and he was listening to some vinyl, and the person he was talking with said, "Oh, Stairway to Heaven, my favorite Zeppelin tune." And you're like, "All right." He's like, "That and about 20 others." And I'm like, "Yeah, you know what? I've owned Zeppelin on vinyl. I've owned it on cassette. I've owned it on CD. I have owned in the past a box set, but I would never say they ever were in my top 5, or they're always sort of there." And so to me, that's where I get maybe it's underappreciated, maybe it's just taken for granted.
Yeah, I think that's more maybe speaks to your personal tastes. Because I don't think in any classic rock countdown, you go any higher than top 5, top 6, top 7 without hearing a Zeppelin tune or them as a band dropped in there, right? Like,
Yeah, and according to Rolling Stone, I think the last time we talked about this, they were a top 3,
right.
In terms of, and it's funny that I don't list them in my top 5, but I don't know how many bands that aren't a favorite of yours that you could off the top of your head drop 30 tunes probably, right?
Oh, no, I'm sure I can't.
Yeah. So anyways, where this came down to as it morphed in a different direction was songs that you hear that formulate your interest or your love of music, right? And I think of songs that you hear and you go, man, that sound, I'm not even sure what that sound is, but it's something so different than everything else that's going, right? And it's sort of, I think those are the things that help to shape your musical direction. And I think about tunes like, and this is where it really comes up, I think of When the Levee Breaks by Led Zeppelin.
Okay.
The beginning to that, I think of Cold Gin by Kiss, right? Like that to me is when I heard it the first time, I was at a way back, ladies and gentlemen, come with me in the Wayback Machine. I think in grade 5, and I went to see my brothers were in an air band contest.
Yes.
Okay, so they were
Awesome.
Yeah, I think they were in Rat doing a version of Round and Round, and they did okay. They didn't place, but the winner of the show did Cold Gin by Kiss. They came out in makeup, big Kiss sign with the proper font, all done in lights. Like it was kick ass, and they did. And the song, I was just like, "What is this?" It was awesome, right? And I think of Lonely Boy by the Black Keys. That sort of was my entry point for the Black Keys. I was like, man, that sound is so unique. And I think most of them happen when you're younger.
Yeah.
I think for me, that's why when I came to the Black Keys later in life, like I'm 40, I think, and I had to work back in the catalog. But yeah, I just,
you know what? It's interesting. I was just thinking something similar the other day. I was talking to somebody, and I grew up, we've talked about it 100 times, in a house that was largely country music and, or, adult contemporary shit, right? Like 80s hit, whatever it might be.
But Matt, how many times in your mostly country house did you hear the song, "I like it, I love it,
Yeah.
I want
About
some
5 a
more
night.
of it"? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it is about that Predator scoring.
Yeah, we
but
got
I
the
love-
joke. That's why I said 5 a night, right? That's
Oh, 5 and I didn't hear you.
okay. So, yeah, you were too busy just singing away and enjoying that.
That's what I do.
The thing that I was going to say is, for me, I think of Enter Sandman, right? The first album I ever bought with my own money on tape was that Metallica Black album. Mm-hmm. And I didn't love the whole album. But that song, that is kind of one of Metallica's poppiest songs, right? Most radio-friendly. And it took me a while, but as I looked, through where my musical interests ended up going, I would end up liking down the road some Iron Maiden. But again, kind of the poppier Iron Maiden. I would get into sort of punk rock, but it was more pop punk than the really grungy.
Yeah.
Like it's sort of, as you kind of umbrella out or count the spokes on the wheel, all kind of coming from that one place. You go, I like it a little bit heavier, but let's not go crazy on the screaming or the whatever, right? Like the really overly heavy shit kind of loses me a little bit. But anything that kind of stays in that more melodic but heavy, whether it's more of a punk or a metal style, you'll probably keep me, right? Like,
oh, that's why that's for sure the Iron Maiden, the Bruce Dickinson Iron Maiden falls right into that melodic rhythm guitar with the gallop, and it just in his voice. Mm-hmm. But see, that Metallica album, that's the album that most Metallica fans went,
I get that
bullshit.
Yeah, you're turning on us here, right? Like I kind of get that. And
I see you want some radio play. Bully for you.
It's true, man.
Okay, well, and that is interesting, right? That is how that goes, and you've sort of. That's the same thing we're talking about, right? Just the things that go. And I grew up in a dirt house, right? So, not my parents so much, but I had 2 older brothers, right?
Yeah, serious dirts.
And so there was lots of Judas Priest and Black Sabbath and Deep Purple, and you're right into the middle. And not hair metal. We're talking about, more serious.
Oh,
stuff,
sure, yeah.
Armored Saint and those kinds of things, right? So Metallica, that is really the household. And so I came from that, but to me, I moved more towards Kiss was big in the house too, Led Zeppelin. But I sort of moved in a way towards older Aerosmith, that blues rock kind of is when you start to find your own way, and you're like, okay, I got this, but it's not really what, I love. And as you say, you sort of find that center line and then you move.
Yeah.
A bit on your own, and you're like, yeah, okay, I like that too, but
step out here a bit. That's a little too far, but I kind of like this area, right? And then you can go, that's a little too far that way, but this works here.
So early Van Halen, the stuff pre-1984 where they went little synth with the 1984 with the jump and whatnot, but really bluesy rock based stuff, and so yeah, interesting, right? I always find music discussions and what it is that drives and formulates your musical taste to be of interest.
For sure, man.